Oshkosh Common Council to order. The city clerk, could please take the roll.
Bulow?
Here.
Stevenson? Has anybody heard from him?
Yeah, he's charging his electric vehicle right now.
Okay. Not present currently. Nichols?
Here.
Larson?
Here.
Esslinger?
Here.
Flum?
Here.
Mugweiler?
Here.
We have 6 currently present.
Leading us in the invocation this evening will be Deputy Mayor Bulow.
We ask for guidance tonight as we begin this meeting. May all those who participate in our discussions and our decisions reflect the values that we cherish in this great city.
You'll all please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Do I get a little? I'll get you one after. Okay. Get you a certificate of appreciation after. You do not get to leave at 6:03 like the students usually do, though. So tonight, we also issued 2 proclamations prior to tonight's meeting. The Lennox-Gastaut Syndrome Awareness Day was November 1st, as well as Crash Responder Safety Week, which is coming up on November 18th through the 22nd. Those are part of the council packet. Next up, we'll have citizen statements to council. As the preamble kind of had said, citizens are to address council only. Statements are limited to 5 minutes. We do have a little bit of a list tonight, so we're going to try and keep it to the 5 minutes. They must address items that are not listed on the council meeting agenda. Limited to issues that have an impact on the city of Oshkosh and that the common council may address at a future meeting, and must not include any endorsements of any candidates or other electioneering. And if you need more time, please try to let me know that at the beginning, but we're going to try to keep it close to 5 if we can. First up tonight was Miss Tina Hafman, and then that'll be followed by Kevin Caro if he's here. Welcome.
Welcome. Hi, everybody. Is this on?
It is.
Great. My name is Tina Hafman. I live at 1307 Washington Avenue. I'm a member of Esther's Housing Advocacy Group. I'm also one of the founders of Day by Day Shelter. And currently I volunteer up at Levin in Appleton. Levin is an entity dedicated to helping people in financial crisis. The majority of the work is eviction prevention and rent assistance. So every week I speak with people who struggle to find and keep shelter. And I speak with landlords and utility people, and everything else that causes crisis. You already know there's a lack of affordable rental housing in Oshkosh, especially for households with incomes under $50,000 a year. You might not know, although you guys probably do, I didn't, that the group of 40%, that 40% is the 50,000, under 50,000 a year is 40% of the population in Winnebago County. That's according to the health assessment survey from the Winnebago County Health Department. The median monthly housing rental costs in Oshkosh are almost $1,000 a month now. That's up to 30% increase in the last 4 years, and you know that wages haven't increased to that level. I can tell you that we're seeing a trend at Levin now that there are more and more seniors that I'm particularly sensitive to, calling for rent assistance to say their rent, they've been in a place for a long, long time, years and years, and their rent has recently been raised to 25 to 30%, while their Social Security checks, and many people who call us rely exclusively on those, will increase 2.5% this year. This basic need for shelter is a senior crisis that seems to be heading for a cliff. Shelters for those who are unhoused have wait lists up to 30 people long, and that's from Fond du Lac to Green Bay. The wait list for affordable housing units is also long, with hundreds hoping for assistance. According to the Housing Authority, the length of time from application to being housed is anywhere from 6 weeks to over 1 year. For the Housing Choice Voucher Program, the waiting list is more significant, with estimates waiting up to 2 years. So when someone comes in with an urgent crisis, and you say, well, it could be 2 years, it's not very helpful. What I'd like to ask you to think about as a city council is, first of all, Levin does not serve Oshkosh. It serves northern Winnebago County. But here in Oshkosh, in Winnebago County, we now have the HELP agency that's run through the ADRC at Winnebago County. That is on a pilot program from ARPA funds that will end soon. And I've worked in this area a long, long time, and I can tell you that Sarah Brown and her people over there are doing such a fabulous job, and they do the most Levin-like work I've ever seen here. They're just amazing. The way they connect and collaborate, it's really something. So as this comes up for a decision on Winnebago County Board, to continue it or to cut it off, it'd be a shame to cut it off, but I don't know how that's going to go, and they haven't talked much about it. I'd like you to know about it and support it if you can. If you don't know about it, please find out about it. Another thing I'd like you to know about is at the Tenant Resource Center. That's being talked about, bubbling up in a few areas around here, and one of them is our Esther Housing Advocacy Group. Dane County has an absolutely fabulous model for a tenant resource center that's been there 40 years, and now is positioned to mitigate 80% of the evictions in that county. That's like the highest number you ever hear. There's an urgent need for such an agency in the Fox Valley, and it seems to me that Oshkosh would be most appropriate because there's so much student rental, and the housing stock is so old. I hope you'll look up. We've talked a lot with. We've heard a presentation from Dane County's Tenant Resource Center, and it's pretty awesome. Of course, they have been there 40 years. I would like you to think about finding out about that and seeing what services we could begin to offer here along those lines. The crisis wave that is lack of affordable housing has not crested here or anywhere for that matter, and is instead relentlessly surging. Though this problem is an urgent one, and Oshkosh has done some work and done some good work and has some good people, it seems like we've studied it sort of ad nauseum. I would love to see a consistent effort on affordable housing. It requires consistent effort and true collaboration between nonprofits, city, county, and state governments, and the donor entities of the private sector. Relying exclusively on nonprofits is just not sustainable. So I hope you'll consider a way to do that. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. If Kevin Caro is here, you're welcome to come on up. Otherwise, we'll move on to Deb Martin and then Bill Van Lopik right after. Welcome.
Deb Martin, 164 Wildwood Drive, Oshkosh. Thank you. As Tina mentioned, Oshkosh is in a housing crisis, as is most of our state and country. Adding police expenses to talk to people experiencing homelessness really does little to address the real crisis, which is lack of affordable housing. There's no places for people to go that they can afford. Tina mentioned a couple things but I'll say most of the affordable rental units are in older housing stock in our city, and some of these units are poorly maintained. Some landlords refuse to make repairs even after repeated requests. I was involved in a minor way with the apartment building at 720 Cherry Street had to be emptied in October this past month. People were told the beginning of the month, everyone had to be out by the end of the month. I know there's 2 other apartment buildings right there. I've been in all of them, and they're none of them in good condition. That was forcing people in a short amount of time at low income to find other places to live, and we're already in a reduced state for this. In the process of learning about this, and I think I sent everyone an email at the time, I found out that AdvoCap, which is a great organization in town, and I'm not speaking against them, but they have 528 on their waiting list. So we have resources here, and they're good ones, but they are not adequate for the great need that we see in our city. Many landlords in the city are charging significantly higher application fees than the $25 per adult that is allowed by Wisconsin law. And again, we have some great landlords in the city. I am not speaking against them, but we also have some that really aren't following our rules, and we don't have a good way to track this kind of information. Sometimes tenants experience hate incidents in their own homes but have not been protected by landlords, and the lack of available housing forces people to remain in unsafe situations. Oshkosh and Winnebago County have insufficient resources to help people access this housing. While we do have excellent resources, as I mentioned, many of these have been supported by the city. They are insufficient. Shelters have wait lists of up to 30 people long. So we are seeing people homeless on our streets, but it's for a reason. Where are they to go? With limited help. And it's confusing as to who to go to, and they may have been to places, but then where else to go? And the churches all have limited resources as well. It is imperative that we increase investment in affordable housing, like the Washington School project. That's a good one, but it's only a small amount. We are only we're putting finger in the dam it's ready to burst. Additional investments really are desperately needed. I ask you to begin with a review of the current city policies and practices for responding to tenant discrimination. The Milwaukee Fair Housing Community Response Network might serve as a model for how we can do better in our own community. I ask you to pass housing reform policies that protect tenants and support good landlords. Look at the Racine Rents initiative for examples of how to empower tenants and support landlords. Many violations in Oshkosh are unreported, even if they pose a risk to public health and safety because tenants fear retaliation. And where else are they going to go? We need scheduled, systematic inspections of rental units within the city. These inspections help to ensure properties are not posing a risk to the public health and safety. Racine has set up property registry for all rental and commercial properties that allows the city to know who owns and manages properties and how to contact them in case of emergencies or problems. I know we've had a few in our city over the last years, a flood in one of the downtown buildings a year or two ago. It's good to know who to contact when you have those kind of crises. A tenant resource center could provide training for tenants and landlords, assist individuals in finding housing, connect tenants to services such as mediation and rental assistance like they have in Madison, as Tina mentioned. Currently, individuals here seeking assistance have no central place to turn, and all programs are overwhelmed. I thank you for your immediate attention, and thank you for your work on behalf of our citizens.
Thank you. Next up will be Bill Van Lopik, followed by Carol Gilbert. Welcome.
Thank you. Good to be here. My name is Bill Van Lopik, and I live in Appleton, but I want to just tell a few stories here about people I've met and talked to in Oshkosh. Just to reiterate what Deb was saying, we have some really poorly maintained rental housing. The units are of older stock, and some of these are poorly maintained. And with high prices and no available units, renters are forced to live in poorly maintained units. And they're afraid to mention this to the landlords for fear of higher rent or eviction. So the past year I've been meeting with people mostly at the Oshkosh Food Pantry and asking them their housing stories. Here's just a sample of 4 quick ones I want to mention that talk about this issue. One was, her name is Ivory, and these are made up names, but at the last year, she pays $975 a month for an apartment. She complained that the property owners do not fix anything. She said the place is infested with cockroaches and they come out whenever there is food around. The landlord is raising the rent by $35 a month. There's no locks on the outside doors, so people can just come into the building. She knows that strangers make drug deals in the laundry room. She's afraid to talk to the landlords because she knows that they will raise her rent and ask her to leave. So she just lives with it. Another one is Heather. She rents an apartment in a house and has been there 6 years, pays $675 a month. She says the landlord increases the rent at his leisure. He often will text her and say, "Where's my money?" even though she is prompt with payments. She lives in fear of his texts and threatens to kick her out. Her landlord is unresponsive to her concerns regarding the state of the house. She complained of a bad smell in the basement and a leaky pipe. She complained for over 2 weeks, and it was discovered to be a leaky sewage pipe. The city made him fix it, but mold developed in the basement and had a terrible smell. The landlord fixed that by pouring a bunch of bleach in the basement, which was a huge irritant to her. Then the landlord dug up the front yard to replace her sewer pipe with an excavator and has not finished the job and left a big hole in the front yard. These folks gave me their addresses here in Oshkosh. Another person, she's lived in a current apartment for 3 years. She pays $595 plus utilities. She had nothing good to say about her landlord. There was a hot water leak in her bathroom, which went on for weeks. She had to go to her former husband's place to take a shower. She complained of this and many other concerns to her landlord numerous times, but he did nothing about it. She finally complained to the city housing inspector who came over. The housing inspector told the landlord to fix it and that would cost thousands of dollars. This greatly angered the landlord, who shouted at Dee and told her to get the hell out of my place. This impacted Dee greatly and put her in a deep depression because no one had ever talked to her like that before in her life. She had 28 days to find another place. The housing inspector was no help in pleading her case and helping her find something else. She had a hard time finding other housing because the former landlord gave her a bad reference. She was happy to talk to me and gave me her address and the name of the landlord and everything else. And then finally, a woman who's 82 years old. She lives in a 3-bedroom apartment. The apartment was infested with bed bugs, which came from another apartment. The landlord supposedly fixed the problem and is charging residents $2,000 for the fix. However, she says the problem persists. They pay $800 a month in rent plus the $50 extra money for the bed bug fix. She has also seen cockroaches in the apartment, and when they complain to the landlord, they always say, if we do something, we have to raise your rent. She has had many medical problems related by these infestation of bugs. Finally, I think there's solutions to this, and I just want to mention this, and this is something that our group has been working on with Esther, and in Racine, they have the Racine Rents Initiative, which could serve as an example for how to empower tenants and support landlords. For one, Racine has expanded rental protections against landlord retaliation, which I've just highlighted, goes on. Landlords cannot evict, threaten, or take other harmful actions against tenants because they reported a code or nuisance violation to the city. Second, Racine has established a neighborhood enhancement and stabilization district where the city conducts scheduled, systematic inspections of rental units within this district. These inspections help to ensure properties are not posing a risk to public health and safety. And then finally, Racine offers an escrow deposit program where tenants whose landlords have failed to address habitability code violations will be able to pay their rent to the city instead of to their landlord. The city will hold the funds in escrow and pay the landlord when the landlord has addressed these code violations. So that just encourage you, that's something for Oshkosh to consider in order to address this issue of, as a number of these people call them, slumlords. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Next up, Carol Jobert, followed by Jennifer Considine. Welcome.
Hi, I'm Carol Jubert, 1530 Jefferson, and again, I'm here to talk about affordable housing. There are issues, but I feel like it's the same fight that my grandparents fought, that housing was an issue in the 30s, right after and during the Depression, and that's when the Affordable Housing Administration got started, and here we are, people can't find a place to live. I haven't rented for a long time, but recently in helping a friend find a place, 1 bedroom, over $1,000 a month, this application fees that are oftentimes not returned, and people are doing without. Your $25 is gone. Now you are not buying food because your money's gone, and you have to apply for place after place after place, and then the money is gone. So I'm urging you as a people of Oshkosh that we find an answer. Maybe we need to develop more places, but there also needs to be some sort of resources for tenants and landlords. Thanks.
Thank you. Jennifer Considine, followed by Elizabeth Willis. Welcome.
Thank you. Jennifer Constine, 300 Dale Avenue. As I'm following the other folks who have already spoken, I found myself thinking I wish the stories that Bill shared with you were unique and that they were outliers, but we've had over 200 conversations in this community. I've done focus groups with students at the UW Oshkosh campus, and these stories are in no way unique. There are lots of folks in this community who are afraid of retaliation as renters, who are who are overly cost burdened by the rent that they have to pay. When the City of Oshkosh Housing Study was released in 2022, one of the most striking numbers to me was that we are 2,424 units short for households making under $25,000 in this community. That means about half the households that make that kind of money can't afford the rent that they're paying in their units. So these stories are not unique. And we also know that 45% of Oshkosh households are renters. So it's not like most of the people in this community own their own homes. We have a vast majority of the community that is also engaged in renting. And as everyone has highlighted, it's become wildly unaffordable. When the housing study was done, the median rent was $671. It's now $1,000 a month. So it's risen over 30%. And there's no way that wages have caught up with that. And we've also seen that food costs have also skyrocketed. I recently was talking to some folks who, as someone earlier highlighted, were given a 28-day notice to be out of their unit. And I was out for a walk downtown, and I got really excited because I saw a unit for rent, and I thought, this looks really nice. So I looked it up online, and I thought, this is going to be great. It's a 2-bedroom, 1-bath. It's $850. This is a win. Let me read to you what you need to get this apartment. To even get your application looked at, each adult must pay a non-refundable $35 application fee and submit an individual application regardless of marital status. That's illegal. Each applicant must submit proof of citizenship or immigration status as imperative. That's also illegal. All applicants are required to validly identify themselves by uploading photo identification. They have to submit proof of income with the final pay stubs from the entire last year of their income. They also need to include a rental history spanning at least 5 years. So while that unit appears to be affordable, that's what it would take to get into that particular unit. So I've emailed you all, and several of my colleagues here have talked about there are many, many things that we can do. So while state law right now is not doing a great job of protecting renters, there are things that individual cities can do. There's the Racine Rents Initiative that's already been highlighted that has 6 separate elements that city has put into place to protect tenants. It also has incentives for good property owners and landlords. We can continue to increase investment in affordable housing. The Washington School Project, the Corridor on Main, these are really great examples of a step in the right direction. There are also communities that are doing things like starting housing trust funds like we have in Milwaukee and New Berlin, where everyone is paying into that so that we can incentivize new housing, or that we can incentivize the restoration of all of the older housing stock that we have in this community. You can support the establishment of a tenant landlord resource center like the one that has already been talked about in Madison. The other thing that you can do that would cost you nothing is that you can lead a review. What are the current city policies and practices for responding to landlord retaliation? What are the current city policies and practices for responding to hate crimes that happen in our rental units in this community? The Milwaukee Fair Housing Community Response Network has a model for how we can respond to those things. And so I would ask you to look at those resources and consider what you can do. Thank you.
Thank you. Elizabeth Willis, followed by Phyllis Havens. Welcome.
Hello. Elizabeth Wills, 424 Wisconsin Street, Apartment 3. I wanted to touch base on the homelessness situation in Oshkosh. Everyone knows that there's a homeless crisis going on in Oshkosh, and I once was homeless. I actually stayed at the Day by Day, which I was very grateful for, and I now have my own place. But there's still people sleeping out in the cold at night, nowhere to go, because shelters here have a wait list, as you've heard before, to 30-plus people waiting on that list. And with it getting colder out, I am just asking that you guys can figure out that we have a emergency warming shelter somewhere this winter, because as it gets cold, like I said, that's not good for anyone to sleep in. So, and there's plenty of places and churches that would be willing to have that warming shelter. And we wouldn't even have to also pay people to make sure that those warming shelter can be open. I've talked to numerous people already within the last week that are willing to just volunteer. They don't care if they get money. And that's all I gotta say.
Well, thank you. Phyllis Havens. Welcome.
Hi. Thank you. Good evening. I just wanted to take a moment to thank God, thank City Council, and the citizens of Oshkosh. My name is Phyllis Havens, and I want to talk about the homeless. I and my friend Amber Jocelyn work with the homeless. We feed the homeless at the Sundial on the corner of Main and where the Sundial is, sorry. And she's been doing that. She has a church there called the Revival Street Church. And she's been doing that since May of 24 to October 24th. And I met Amber through church, and I wanted to help feed the homeless. And one of the reasons why it was a touching subject to me was because I once was homeless with my children, and we lived in a storage unit. You know, and that's no way to live and to bring up a family. You know, and it was by the grace of God that organizations, great organizations, came together and they got me a place to live and my children, and I haven't been homeless since. So, I mean, praise God to that. But even my own children have faced homelessness just recently. You know, and they have no place to go, and you know, it's very hard when you see your own family going through it, and you can't help it because you don't have the funds. Because I'm on Social Security, you know, and the prices are so high, you know, and there are totally different criteria now. So, you know, I just, we're just looking for solutions. And some of the solutions that we kind of come up with is, you know, like the warming shelter. To be able to, for them to go and just sleep for a while. You know, there's plenty of volunteers, you know, churches, you know, and we could, like, one of the things is, the complaints is the peeing in public. The homeless solution is porta potties. Would that be a viable thing to do? You know, so, you know, I don't know, because after a certain time, businesses are closed. So where do they go? To the bathroom without breaking the law? Because we are here to uphold the law as well. You know, so I just really want to thank you, and it's been a sure pleasure to see the things that come about when people come together, you know, and we just want to thank you and bless you.
Thank you. One more time for Kevin Caro. If Kevin's here, now's your time. Otherwise, we're going to move on. Is there anyone else that, I know we had some stragglers come in. Is there anyone else that wants to speak under citizen statements to council? If not, we're going to move on with agenda-related items. Okay, we'll move on. That closes citizen statements to council. We'll move on to consent agenda. I have no one registered to speak to anything on consent, so I'll take a motion and a second for consent.
So moved. Second.
Any discussion on anything consent-related? Councilmember Bresslinger.
I'd like resolution 24-567 removed for a separate vote.
Sure. Any other discussion on any of the remaining items? City Clerk, if you can take the roll on consent minus 24567.
Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 6.
We'll take up Resolution 24-567. This is Adopt Oshkosh Area Metropolitan Planning Organization Electric Vehicle Readiness Plan. I'll take a motion in a second, please.
So moved. Second.
Discussion. It's all yours, Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. I had this pulled, I went back and forth on this about literally 50 times. I was voting for it, not voting for it. It's pretty innocuous. It's a plan regarding what to do for stations, electric vehicle stations in the city. And it was done, I'm the traffic representative for the council, and there was a study done, and there was, I don't know, I think some of the issues that were on there were pretty vague, and I'm not sure that the statistics were just more of guessing than anything else. I do believe this issue, while it is coming forward, I think there's a lot more questions to ask, and we don't have the answers for that yet. And while this is not asking for any money, again, I'm not even really sure what the plan is, because it doesn't state that if someone in the private sector wants to do this, well, can we let them do it? Is this something that government needs to do? Usually not. I think good ideas, most of the time, if there was any kind of financial gain to be done, that would come from the private sector. So, I think if this gets voted in favor of, it kind of opens a door that I think we not need open. If someone from the private sector wants help or ordinances to be changed to help do this, I'm all for that. I think that'd be a good public-private partnership. But I'm uneasy with voting on this, and really, I don't know what the plan is. So I'm going to vote no on that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yep. So I'm one of the representatives on the East Central Metro Policy Board that voted to send this to the Transit Advisory Committee as well. And what this does is just lay out a framework of where we'd want to see expansion, how that could occur. Like you said, there's no financial budget action to this. It just lays out a framework of, hey, where are the spots that we'd want to see targeted. One of them is the convention center downtown, where people could charge during the day if they are shopping downtown or using the main street. And then a lot of them, of course, are through the I-41 corridor. So I'll be supporting this. It's just a general guidelines and layout of the study for what can happen if there is action in the future.
Any other comments? If not, City Clerk, take the roll on 24-567.
Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
No.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 5-1.
Next up is actually an ordinance that I'm going to be recusing myself from, along with one other resolution coming up shortly, so the Deputy Mayor is going to take over.
So considering ordinance 24-580, approved zone change from heavy industrial district to heavy industrial district with a plan development overlay at 2875 Atlas Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval. We don't have anybody.
Nobody.
No, okay. So I'll take a motion in a second.
Move it.
Second. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, City Clerk, please take a roll.
Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
And Mughawar accused?
Present.
Carried 5. 1 accused, present.
Not accused. Recused.
Recused. Sorry. Accusing you.
Yeah.
We can accuse him of something.
I could. Got it. Thank you.
Next up, we have a new ordinance, no anticipated action on this first one at least tonight. Ordinance 24581. This is to cancel the December 24, 2024 council meeting. Again, no action on this one. I'll come back at the next meeting for a vote to cancel that meeting. The next one, staff does recommend waiving the rules and adopt on first reading. This is ordinance 24582 to create a temporary order prohibiting alcohol in city parks. Again, staff recommends waiving the rules and adopting on first reading. Do I have any council members wishing to waive the rules and adopt on first reading?
I'll move to waive the rules at this time.
Second.
Any discussion on the waiving of the rules? Mr. Nichols?
I guess maybe just first a question. Why, what's the speed required here? Like what's the importance of waiving the rules for this ordinance in particular?
Guess I can answer for the chief somewhere back there.
There you go.
I think it was to coordinate the two actions. One is the resolution, one's an ordinance. And I just wanted to note, because it is a waiver of the rules, it is a supermajority votes for 6. It would take 4 to waive the rules.
Thank you.
And I think I talked long enough for you to come up.
Is there any questions for Chief on the waiving the rules? We can't talk about the topic itself yet, just waiving. But I think the Councilmember Nichols' question is, why do we got to move it up 2 weeks? Why can't we wait 2 weeks?
We could wait 2 weeks. We're just trying to allow tools for us to work on some of our neighborhood concerns within certain park areas.
Great, thank you.
But we certainly could let it go till next week too, or
Great.
the next council meeting as well.
Great. I think I'll be supportive of not waiving the rules here, just because we do have them for a reason. We want to make sure people have the opportunity to think about it, speak about it at council meetings. I'm in support of waiving the rules when there is, a need because of planning purposes or construction timelines, whatever it might be, but here I'm not supportive, so thanks.
Deputy Mayor?
Well said. I didn't know if you're going to go there at the end, but that's exactly what I was going to say. In this situation, I would like an opportunity for the community to weigh in, especially on a topic that's going to have effects for a lot of people. So I'll be voting no on waiving the rules.
Any other comments? If not, if you'll take the roll on the motion to waive the rules and adopt on first reading.
Bulow?
No.
Nichols?
No.
Larson?
No.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
No.
Mughawar?
No.
That's 5 no for waiving.
All right, then there'll be no action taken on 24582 this evening. It'll come back in 2 weeks for discussion and action. Next up, new resolutions. We have Resolution 24583. This is to amend approved designated, actually, this is going to be connected to the waiver of the rules. Am I on the last one, is it not? Or not the waiver of the rules?
It's a resolution.
This is a resolution connected to the last action, or no?
They're not tied together specifically. They're
Okay, they are,
related to one
they're
another.
related, but not, okay, so they are independent, okay. Resolution 24583, amend approved designated outdoor refreshment area, DORA, for the Downtown Business Improvement District Area 2425, to remove city park property and sidewalk adjoining Opera House Square Park. I have no one registered, I'll take a motion and a second.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Nichols?
I'm going to move to lay over until the next council meeting, so it aligns with the ordinance we just delayed.
I would need a second on that. Discussion on the motion to lay over. All right, I see none. If you'll take the roll on motion to lay over to the next council meeting, combined with ordinance 24582.
Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
No.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
That's carried 5-1 to lay over.
Deputy Mayor?
Yep. Resolution 24584, approve general development plan and specific implementation plan for directional signage at 2875 Atlas Avenue. Plan Commission recommends approval. Do we have nobody here to speak, so I'll take a motion in a second.
Move it.
Second. All right, any discussion? Seeing none, please take the roll.
Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar.
Present.
Carried 5-1 present.
I wasn't accused of anything on that one that time.
That'll come later.
24, we'll keep moving on. 24,585, appropriate ARPA funds for 2024 projects in lieu of issuing debt. I'll take a motion and a second on that.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. I see none. When the clerk's ready, if you can take the roll.
Bulow.
Aye.
Nichols.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Essinger.
Aye.
Flum.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 6.
Resolution 24,586, approve agreement with Passport Labs, Inc. for implementation of parking enforcement and parking permitting software for the Information Technology Division. I don't have anyone registered on this one, so I'll take a motion and a second, please.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion on this? Councilmember Flom.
Just want to say, I know that a lot of residents have been talking about the potential for using online applications for parking permits. I know that's been something that's been a pet peeve for many people, so that they don't have to walk in the city hall and pay with cash or check. So this is a step in the right direction, and I'd appreciate staff, all their work on this.
No, I act with that. It's a convenience factor, moving us a little bit closer to some of the digital times. And again, appreciate staff working through this and trying to find the best solution for all departments and for the people of Oshkosh. So thank you. If there's nothing else, take the roll on 24,586.
Bulow.
Aye.
Nichols.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Essinger.
Aye.
Flum.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 6.
Resolution 24,587, approve resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $17,415,000 aggregate principal amount of general obligation promissory notes of the city of Oshkosh, Winnebago County, Wisconsin, in such amount, providing details, prescribing the form of note, levying taxes, and authorizing the sale of said notes to the purchaser thereof. I'll take a motion and a second.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion or questions? I see none. Please take the roll.
Bulow.
Aye.
Nichols.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Essinger.
Aye.
Flum.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 6.
Resolution 24,588, approve resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $5,775,000 aggregate principal amount of water system revenue bonds of the city of Oshkosh, Winnebago County, Wisconsin, for the purpose of completing certain capital projects related to the city's water works system, prescribing details of said bonds in the form of bond, providing for the payment of said bonds and the covenants with respect thereto, authorizing the award of said bonds to the best bidder, therefore, and related matters. I'll take a motion and a second, please.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. I see none. Please take the roll.
Bulow.
Aye.
Nichols.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Essinger.
Aye.
Flum.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 6.
Moving right along, we have one more similar one, Resolution 24,589, approve resolution authorizing the issuance of not to exceed $4,330,000 aggregate principal amount of sewer system revenue bonds of the city of Oshkosh, Winnebago County, Wisconsin, for the purpose of completing certain capital projects related to the city's sewer system, prescribing details of said bonds in the form of bond, providing for the payment of said bonds and the covenants with respect thereto, authorizing the award of said bonds to the best bidder therefore, and related matters. I'll take a motion and a second, please.
Move it.
Second.
Any discussion? Please take the roll on 24,589.
Bulow.
Aye.
Nichols.
Aye.
Larson.
Aye.
Essinger.
Aye.
Flum.
Aye.
Mughawar.
Aye.
Carried 6.
Resolution 24-590, adopt the 2025 annual budget and establish the tax levy for the city of Oshkosh. I have no one registered to speak.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. Councilmember Flom, you're first.
I would just like to mention a couple things about the budget. First, I would like to thank fellow members of council for sitting in on all the budget sessions. These were long hours. These were a lot of conversations about priorities. A budget at the end of the day is a priority document and a statement of values and what we prioritize as a community. And I think we did a pretty good job with analyzing those needs and doing the best we can with the limited resources that we have as an institution. And so, just so people at home know, the city is doing a 1.79% levy reduction, sorry, 1.379 levy reduction. And it's also a real dollar value reduction as well. So that's around $500,000 off the tax levy. So we are working to fully fund city operations, investing in our future, and doing our best to make sure that we're financially responsible for the future. Because of the 2024 real estate valuation and the issues that we've had with that, we had to be a little bit different in the way we budget this year as opposed to years prior, and I'd like to thank our finance director, Julie, for doing all the work, and all the finance staff as well with getting that done. We have asked a lot of you and your team, and I would just like to thank you. So if you see here, I've received another notice of non-compliance from the State of Wisconsin Department of Revenue about having to reval again in 2025, and so hopefully then we have a assessed value set that is equal and closer to taking some of the pressure off of residential properties. So again, I would like to very much thank fellow council members, city staff for putting this budget together. Is it perfect? No. It's not perfect. No budget is ever going to be perfect. But I think we have done a good job in making sure that we have done the best that we can with the resources that we have, and looking forward to the future. So thank you.
Well put. Any other council members? Councilmember Esslinger, followed by Deputy Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. This is, if I'm doing the math correctly, it's my 13th budget that I've gone over, and don't let that mystery roll off. Anyway, I really want to give some thanks here in all those budgets, this council here. Well, first of all, let me start out. We had some curveballs thrown at us with the assessments. You know, the mess up in the commercial, we're scrambling to figure that out. We told the residents up front when we first started this process that just because the value of the homes went up, that doesn't necessarily mean that your taxes were going to go up. Well, we said that in good faith. Unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition because of the obstacles that we had. So I think the 7 of us up here listened to the folks that were very after they were told that's not going to happen, that they are going to go up. I think the distrust level went up very, very high, rightfully so. And so the 7 council members with many, many hours, and the staff, by the way, Julie, you did a fantastic job. Mr. Roloff, everyone on the staff, sitting there and having to listen to us, talk about things and say, here's what we want to do. You go out and find out how to do it now. That might have been a little unfair, but you did it. Okay, so staff the council had some great discussion. I think that we did, like I said, I think we listened to the residents that said, you know, we're in a bad situation. We elected you for a reason. We put our faith and trust into you. And as Councilmember Flom says, is this perfect? No, it's not. But I think with all the obstacles that we had and the things that we could do, I think we came out pretty darn good on this. So thank you to the council and the staff for all your hard work.
Deputy Mayor, followed by Councilmember Nichols.
I've been thinking long and hard about how I'm going to vote for this one because I'm not overly comfortable with this budget. I understand why we're doing it. I understand why we're taking $3.6 million out of our general fund to cover a snafu in the rezoning process that none of us caused up here, and none of us were amenable to the solution of just raising the taxes by that much. Totally get that. I'm worried that we're adding 11 full-time employees, and we're doing that by taking money out of the general fund, which is not sustainable, which means next year, I don't know if I'm going to be on this council because I have to, you know, my term is up. So I hope that I get to take part of this process next year, but I also hope that we don't make a huge deficit for next year's council that they can't overcome because they're going to have to absorb more of the full-time employees because it only counts for some of the new firefighters and all that. However, I also want to recognize that I don't get my way in every budget or many things, and I do want to respect the fact that many, many people put in a lot of work to collaborate and come up with something that is responsible to our taxpayers, responsible to our citizens, and there are some ways that we can help mitigate next year's, and I am optimistic on those, and so I'm going to trust the people that have put together the budget that are much smarter than me, and I like Mr. Flom and Mr. Esslinger said, this process has been very collaborative from every city council member, and we've heard from a lot of citizens, so I appreciate that very much as well. I'm not happy with how we ended up, but I am happy with the process that got us here, and I think this is the best that it is possibly going to get.
Councilmember Nichols, and then I think Councilmember Flom, unless you'll let Councilmember Larson go first before you go second. Sounds good. Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. I agree with almost everything that was said up here, so I won't repeat all of it, except for I do really appreciate you, Julie, and Mark, and the rest of the team on making sure that you put together a really strong budget with a really difficult ask, like everyone's mentioned. We had a really tough revaluation. We have increasing costs for residents, especially when you look at gas and groceries and housing, and we heard you, that it is incredibly difficult to pay your bills, especially as we're looking at higher costs. The city is also faced with higher costs, so as you see some of the increases in the individual line items, you have to imagine that it's hard to juggle. But I appreciate how we're doing this. I think that we are looking at solutions. Even though some of those solutions, to Councilmember Buell's point, may create problems for next year. To that point, as I mentioned at the October 22nd meeting, and as much as many staff members said in their budget presentations, having consultants come in and look at our practices and policies and expenditures, I think is going to be key as we go into the 2025 budget year. And spending money in the right way to do that, to identify ways that we can synergize between departments, we can go after additional grant funds, we might be able to work on combining softwares when they don't make sense between different departments, and essentially making sure that we're collaborating the way that you would expect to happen on the private side. Acknowledging government is not private sector, but we can work on more collaboration in that way. So I'm excited with where we landed. I think it's progress and it's positive for the community. And I'll just repeat again, I know, Julie, you especially have received late night emails from us. We've gotten even later night responses from you. So I appreciate all the hours that you put in with a really difficult budget. Not that they're not always difficult. I think this one, though, was particularly difficult. So thank you.
Councilmember Larson, then we'll go for Councilmember Flom.
I'll be short. I'm going to echo all the same, and Julie especially. I've told you a billion times via email. I think I probably wrote the most emails, so if anyone will blame anybody, you can blame me, right? Probably. But seriously, it was a fun, collaborative effort. Carl, I understand exactly what you're saying. DJ, we talked about that before. That is, I am confident we can find ways to improve that going forward. And I wanted to add one more thanks here. I heard from so many people in the community about this, which is great, that there are people engaged in this process with us, and I think that's amazing. And the more we do that, the better we'll be, and the better we'll all be collectively. So thanks to everybody for listening too.
Councilmember Flom.
I'm just going to fact check myself super quick. The total levy change is minus 1.17%. I got the numbers backwards, so for the people at home, minus 1.17. So thank you for all the work that everybody's done. Appreciate it.
Well, they all took everything I was going to say. No, I think every budget, I usually start off by saying something that Councilmember Flom said. No budget's perfect, ever. And you're never going to get everything you want. I know I didn't get what I want, and other council members didn't get what they want, but it's not about what we want. It's about what's best for this community and how to move us forward. We're investing in our infrastructure. We're investing in our people. We're supporting our people financially and with other resources. We're in the service business. So if we have high-quality folks doing excellent work, hopefully our customers, that's the citizens of Oshkosh and the people who choose to work here and invest here, are happy with those services. And so while I'm not excited about how we got to the finished product and just financially, what I do want to recognize is, at least in my 7 budget cycles, this is probably the most collaborative and intensive discussions that council has had that I can recollect. That I really appreciate that no council member just passed this over, just said, oh, you know, it is what it is, and didn't interact on it. Every single one interacted and shared what they thought was best for this community, and I greatly appreciate it. Even if I differ on what that may be, I really appreciate the council discussion on this one and the direction that was the clear direction that was given to staff. Wasn't the easiest direction to get to execute, but as been said multiple times, staff has done an incredible job. Ms. Combs, city manager's office, he gets a little credit. She can take most of it. He's out the door in a few weeks anyways. So
Be nice to her.
Yep, be nice to her, not to him. But beyond that, city staff, department heads specifically, you put a lot of time in this, 12 months a year to get to this process. I know you may not always enjoy or appreciate the decisions we sometimes make, but they're made with the best intentions up here. And I appreciate all the efforts that go into this document here and to the operation and capital budget that we're about to pass and to try to move Oshkosh forward for the next year. So, Deputy Mayor Bulow, you can wrap it all up.
I just wanted to touch on that point because all of the department heads came forward to us with very responsible asks and with very good evidence-based why they need it. And we couldn't say yes to all of them. And that's something that I really wanted to clarify for people watching at home or don't know how this process works, who think that, we've gotten emails where we're just a rubber stamp for more spending. We really have to sit through, and I mean, you can hold that up if you want to, and say yes to some and no to some, and believe me, we would love to fund them all. And they're very, very difficult, and I really respect the department heads bringing items to us that are responsible and respectful, and also that they understand that we can't fund them all. And so when we have to say no, it's not because we're trying to pick favorites or trying to say, we don't want to say no, obviously, to anybody, but it's because we have to be very responsible with our budget. And so I just wanted to say that as well.
Any other discussion or comments? With that, City Clerk, if you'll take the roll in 24-590, approving the budget and tax levy.
I'd be happy to, but I'd like to know who was the first one who motioned to, okay. Thank you, then I'll call it. Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 6.
Resolution 24-591, approve financing for the 2025 capital improvement projects. I'll take a motion in a second, please.
Move it. Second.
Discussion. I see none. Please take the roll.
Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 6.
Last of the action items for us this evening, this is Resolution 24-592, award bid for Public Works Contract 25-07 to Carl Bowers and Sons Construction Company for West 15th Avenue reconstruction. I'll take a motion in a second.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion. I see none. Please take the roll on 24-592.
Bulow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Flom?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 6.
That concludes the action items for the evening. We move into council discussion, directing the city manager and future agenda items. First up, this is discussion and direction to city manager. West 7th Avenue reconstruction discussion. We do have 2 members of the public that were registered to speak. We'll go Lee Faust first, followed by Court Lakash. So come on up. Welcome.
Hi, I did speak last time, Lee Faust, 411 West 7th Avenue. I'm going to need help with the videos. I have 2 short videos to present.
Gentleman there.
Jake's coming right now. I think if we give him a second. Oh, you think you're going to run past 5 minutes?
No.
Okay.
The first one is 1:56, the second is 1:15. I do want to just touch base basically.
Nope, we're good.
On each video. I'm not sure if the audio is going to play or not.
Today is Wednesday, November 6th. We have had some rain now for the past couple days. The condition of this basement was already bad enough. Now you can see there's water's leaking in all the way up now along the block. Initially it was more so along the base down here. Now it's up a good, that's a good 4 feet easily. Water's coming in all along the block now with these rains we've had. This would be the east wall of the property. Headed now to the north, there's water here leaking in. Water all along the base still here. The foundation actually, now it's coming up from the bottom. You can see, we never had this before either. This is something new now with the rains. it's making cracks in the actual basement floor itself. My sister actually came in. There's water leaking here too. This would be to the north. That's up a good 3 to 4 feet. As I was saying, my sister came in. She removed the shelving that was here because this is all getting rotten to alleviate the mold, and it's all damaged anyway. There's water all along here, all along the floor. The water's just pouring in the basement. There again, we presented this many, many times. When we initially did it, it was completely dry out. It was bad enough. We have had some rain now, like I mentioned, and the basement conditions are absolutely horrendous. They still refuse to do anything to dig up and see where this water is coming from the problem they've created. What more do you even say? Once again, today is Wednesday, November 6th.
So that's my first video. If I could just touch base quickly on that. To actually see the video, I've invited everyone down to see what my dad deals with. I've had numerous people down there. DJ's been there, Chris has been there. I've had plumbers in there, 2 of them. And when you actually see what's going on down there, everyone that's come there has said, oh my God, this is absolutely horrendous. When you see it, it's much more of an impact. That's why I wanted to present the video. I did have 2 plumbers that were there. I won't mention their names. They didn't give me permission to do so. The one gentleman, Chris knows, he kind of suggested it, that he'd come along. He has over 30 years' experience in doing this, and him and the other gentleman I had both came up with the same theories of what might be occurring there. There again, the street was still poured, the sidewalks have been poured. It's like you're literally trying to bury the problem. And I'm just really amazed, actually, that the street repair continued on. Myself, for sure, I would have been more than happy to wait and delay that until this could have been dug up to see where the water's coming from. I'd like to pose this to the council. Is there anybody on the council that can tell me definitively where that water's coming from? You have to dig it up to see where the water is coming from. So that covers my first point of the first video.
Today is Tuesday, November 12th. I'm at 7th in Michigan. This is the area they were talking about. They're going to possibly dig this up and inject some sort of sealant around their tunnel where they thought it might be leaking up in this area. The closest house is 457 West 7th. I've spoken with that gentleman. He is not having any flooding issues at all. I guess the point I'm trying to make is they got this buried now. This is blacktopped in and covered up. So evidently if they're going to try and fix something, I don't know if they did it or not. I don't believe they have done it. But like I said earlier, the gentleman, I spoke with him, 457, they don't have any flooding issues. So even if they did do a fix here, they've never had a problem down here with flooding. That would be totally irrelevant to what we have going on down the street. My father's house is way down the street down there. He has a second house off the corner, and anything that would be done here would have totally nothing to do with the issue that's going on down there.
Okay, that covers that short video. There again, my point I want to make with this is, common sense would dictate that if you have a pipe that's leaking or a flooding issue that's going to occur where you try to, union these two together, that joins the old tunnel with the new tunnel. Actually, I was not aware that they had done the grout injection. I did find that out now, so I mentioned there, but it has been done. But wouldn't common sense dictate that if you had flooding going on right there, those properties would flood? So the way it was explained to me, that they had some thoughts that flood was occurring there, that water would travel all the way down the outside of the tunnel. That's a good over 400 feet to my father's house and these other properties, and now it's going to turn right and to the south and start flooding these houses up. It would have to be under such, actually, that's impossible for that to happen. The pressure, there's no way that could do that. So this, injection here that was done, it did absolutely nothing, for our properties. My father's sump pump still runs at that same alarming rate. I'm there every single day monitoring this. It runs at a longer 27-second pump cycle, but it fills up about 25 seconds. This has been doing this nonstop since September 19th. Thank you for your time and attention.
Thank you. Next up was Court Lakash. Welcome.
Good evening. We're here again. I do have some handouts. I handed some out. If you guys would take some. Hopefully I have enough. I think I gave one to you.
Oh, yeah, I've got one. Well,
If you want to hand him to Councilmember Flom, he can pass them down if you want.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So that is a report prior to this project on West 7th Avenue. And if you go to, and I do have a couple more copies if you need to.
Sure. Gets one. Thank you.
It was hired by Oshkosh. I believe it was a year ago, October, when it was done. This is a very short report of it. Soil boring logs, if you go to the 4th page or so, this is actually on 7th Street. And if you look down on 2471 soil boring, elevations of groundwater where it says it's wet is actually 20 feet down, 21 feet down. We've got new reports now from the city, and they're saying at that same point is about 10 feet higher. Okay, we're not disputing that the water level's higher. We know it is. It's up in our basement. What we're disputing is how is it getting there? And what was the one thing that changed since October of last year? Again, I know the project is a big project. It's a big engineering defeat. Just to get it done, why is the box culvert that's supposed to be a storm sewer 100% full when we're in a drought? There's nowhere for the water to go. There's nowhere for our sump pumps to pump it to. It's overflowing out of the rings. It's going to the lowest point of the road. What are we doing about this? I'm glad we see some movement from the engineering department taking measurements, but what it really comes down to is why a year ago we did not have this problem. After this construction, which is a capital budget, improvement, do we see improvement in our homes? I don't want to get more involved or into much more. I want to keep it simple. But I hope you hear what we're saying. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. City Manager, it's my understanding, so this is staying on the agenda for us to keep having some updates, at least if not under your outstanding issues, as well as staff is continuously monitoring this and trying to investigate. I know we're getting regular updates from staff as well. Anything else you care to share, just to make sure that we're on the same page?
I just wanted to refer to Mr. Girock's weekly memo. These been sent out to the residents. We're still working on the contractor to take a look at the hydrogeology is the term. I'm not sure if Justin has anything to add to it. Certainly, we can answer any questions. There were some charts and whatnot. In terms of the grouting, if you do have questions, that would be appropriate for Mr. Girock to answer in terms of the intention. The intention, I don't believe, was to stop. It was to determine if it had any impact, because really this is a scientific venture where they're trying to find out where exactly some of this is coming from. Justin, I give you enough time to walk up, so if you want to add anything.
Yeah, so I think really we did the grouting a little over a week ago now, and it was at the intersection of 7th and Michigan. The intent was to try and disseminate the difference between the new construction that we did this year and old construction, the old infrastructure that more than likely is leaking. We don't have any video of that because, as the residents have said, is underwater, and that is actually to be expected. The levels in the storm sewer match very closely with the levels of the Lake Winnebago, as well as right at the outfall at the Fox River. So the storm sewer is designed to be full of water. As it rains, it will flush out from upstream to downstream. So the grout injection was intended to try to close off and seal up our construction project from where else it might be leaking. We are very confident that our current storm sewer infrastructure that was installed with the project, which I guess we've indicated before, used above and beyond measures to try and mitigate it from leaking, both the gasketed joints as well as a MAC wrap sealer on the outside. So that's kind of what that intention was, and we've seen some increase in groundwater upstream of where we did. So during those rains, fairly confident that it's at least stopping water. Now again, where that water is coming from, where it's going, we're still investigating. We did have one meeting with the consultant yesterday. We've got another one scheduled for later this week to kind of give them the background, give them the information. And from then, we're going to be asking for proposals and additional measures to try to help facilitate, what's going on.
Okay. Councilmember Flown.
Just want to thank the residents for 7th Avenue coming back out here tonight. I see a number of them here. Thank you for the ones who spoke. I understand this is a deeply frustrating issue, and it takes more than just platitudes from council to fix. A lot more than that. And so city staff are here. They've been working on this issue, and I would just request that you keep us in the loop on this. I am not an engineer. I am not a professional when it comes to this kind of stuff, so I trust your expertise on this, and thank you for the update.
Mr. Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. Mr. Roloff, I guess maybe this is to you. I think the frustration level with everyone is very, very high here. The residents came forward a couple months ago. They've been dealing with this. And I'm not a hydrologist, they're not either, but I mean, clearly we have a problem, there's an issue, and it needs to be taken care of. I don't know if that means we are not at fault, 0% or 100%, I have no idea. But the job of this council is to get information from the staff. We've gotten it from the residents and figure out what is going on here. Can we get answers? Not we're doing this and then what? Can we get answers? Can we get someone in here, and a municipal hydrologist that can say, here, well, here's your issue, and then we can ferret out what we need to do? Because I tell you what, if I had this problem in my house, I don't have any hair now, and it would be completely gone if I had to go through this. And again, their frustration level is high. It's off the chart, quite frankly. And so I'm frustrated. I can see the anguish in their faces every time they come here. Here we are again. And so it's week after week after week. And I know things don't work in government. They're not fast. I get that. But can you give us some kind of timeline of when we can get answers and say, we're not doing anything, or here's what we're going to do? Council, you have to make a determination.
If I gave you an answer, I'd be lying to you, and I'm not going to do that. I owe it to all of you to give you an answer, and the answer right now is we don't know. We're continuing to work on it. It's science of the underground. So I'll let the professional engineers try to give you as best an answer as we can, but the answer is we're still looking at it. And James or Justin, I don't know what else. That's why Justin's given a weekly report, because it's like, what progress have we made this week or the week before?
Yeah, I think the challenging part, as Justin said, they had a meeting with one of the consultants that we're talking to try to, do some groundwater analysis to figure out where it is coming from. Unfortunately, several of the consultants that we reached out to did not have any staff that could help us. So we've had to expand our requests to other consultants that we've made contacts with over the years. So it's been a very difficult challenge to find consultants that have staff that have the expertise in the hydrogeology and the groundwater movement to help us try to sort out what is going on. Certainly, I would love to be able to say, yeah, we found a person right away and we're already developing a plan. Unfortunately, it's been very difficult to find someone to come help us.
Have we found someone?
We have met with one consultant, as Justin said yesterday. We're meeting with another one on Friday to go over the background and determine if their staff expertise is able to help us. And if it is, then we're going to take the next steps of, all right, let's figure out what a scope of work and a cost of effort would be to get in here and get working on it.
Did they express to you, the one that you did talk to, did you ask them what their timeline would be where they could come out and look at it or review whatever documents you have, whatever it takes to make this analysis? Did they give you a timeline? We can get on this in a week, a day, a few hours, a month? I mean, where are we at?
So specifically, no. We did talk a little about timeline. I indicated to the group we met with yesterday that we had another consultant we were meeting with later this week. There was a lot of questions that they were asking of us, just trying to understand what the project is, what the background is. I sent in the weekly updates, a several hundred page document that staff put together of kind of background information ranging from old 1800 maps of the area through present day, the soil borings that were done last October, soil borings that were done back in middle 2000, early 2000s, 2010, 2015 for different projects in the area. So specifically, no, but I did tell them that this is a bit large concern for us and the residents out here. There are issues that we need to try to resolve. So I did indicate time is of the essence, but they understand that, there's another meeting with consultant later this week. I'd hopefully get some direction to them at some point next week for a direction we want to go to generate that scope of services and a fee schedule to try to move this forward.
I will point out, there was a link in Mr. Gierach's report from last week. It was a 245-page document. It blurred my eyes looking at it, so, I understand if you didn't go through the whole thing. It's just providing information to these consultants for them to review. And it does document, for example, some of the concerns that were brought up by the residents. And so it's documenting that September 19th is sort of the day that when we put the thing back online and the water started to come in and the reports of the increase in water. So that's the information we're providing to them. But again, we can give a fast and easy answer, but it's not going to be a truthful answer. We need to investigate this fully. We don't have an answer yet, but we're continuing to work on it, and I don't know if either of these firms are going to work out. Hopefully, one of them will.
Okay, I'm not trying to yell at anyone here. I think you understand. You guys are probably frustrated with it too.
Yeah, certainly as we talk with them, we are certainly expressing the need for speed in getting this going. But, it starts with them digesting the background information to figure out if they have the expertise to be able to help us.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you very much.
Councilmember Nichols, followed by Mr. Larson.
Thank you. First of all, I appreciate the weekly report that is being sent out. I think that's incredibly helpful. At the October 22nd meeting, I mentioned that customer service is something that we should look at in terms of future learnings, and so I think that's a positive development. I think that's something that we should look at for future CIP projects too, not necessarily 245-page weekly report, but something where we can see a clear update, especially when we do have concerns from residents. There were a couple of questions asked by the 7th Ave folks when they spoke, and so I just want to make sure that I'm asking them in the same way that they did. But Mr. Faust asked, is there anyone on council who can tell me where the water is coming from? I think the answer is no for the 6 of us. Is there anyone at the city that can say where the water is coming from?
At this point, not with any certainty. That's why we're trying to find someone to help us figure it out.
Understood. And then Mr. Lukash, and I'll look at this with an asterisk just because I don't like being handed something and then believing it immediately. Not that I don't believe you, sir. But there's a lot of numbers on here, so I'm not going to understand it anyway. But what I do understand is that it looks like around 21 feet is where the water level was initially, and it sounds like the assertion is that it's around 10 feet now. Does the city agree with that assertion that it's increased 10 feet? And if so, is that a reasonable increase based on the project?
Sure. So one thing I will note, and I've looked at these soil boring logs and studied the report pretty heavily over the last number of weeks as we've been trying to dive into this. One thing to note is throughout the report, it indicates that groundwater can certainly vary depending on the season, rains, things like that. another thing that it also says, and I don't know specifically that boring that you're looking at, but a lot of the borings in the area had a collapse of the borehole at 4 to 5 feet. And they note in there that they can't accurately determine a groundwater elevation because the borehole collapsed and they can't see where it's at.
And that's because it would look deeper than it actually is with the residue that's fallen into the hole? Is that the thought?
Basically, at about 4 to 5 feet below, the borehole collapsed in on itself, so they can't actually see anything below that.
Okay.
And a lot of times with the type of drilling and boring we do, it gives an indication of where groundwater can be, but the way they do it, it can tend to seal up the sides of the borehole as the auger gets into the ground. So really the only way to accurately, truly determine where water levels are is insert a well into that boring and monitor it long-term, which is not something we've done on this project and not something we typically do during our pre-engineering work for any of our projects. I think I attached to the email as the PDF, not in the link, it was also in the link, but kind of the groundwater monitoring that we've been doing throughout the area since kind of this has been brought up. And you can really clearly see the fluctuations with rain of the groundwater in the areas. Kind of the last thing I'd like to point to on those graphs, there were 4, we've been doing a lot of points, but I think 4 points that for actually measure the water in the sewer. So the outfall of the Fox River, the couple of locations throughout the system, and even storm laterals. We've been monitoring one of the storm laterals which has water in it, but that closely mirrors the lake, the water level in the storm sewer as well as in the lake. And we've mentioned a number of times throughout this process, the Army Corps regulates the water levels in Lake Winnebago and the Fox River. They're not on the graphs, but as a side, I've been monitoring our elevations that we're getting with the datum from the Oshkosh, and again, they very closely match within a reasonable degree of tolerance in the system.
And that's helpful. With those readings that we would have looked at prior to starting the project, I'm assuming if at some point we thought this is going to increase 11 feet, the groundwater into people's homes, we would have put the brakes on the project. Is there a conversation at that point, or do we do that determination? Do we actually look at it and say, oh, we think that the groundwater is probably going to increase this much, and this is our threshold for actually doing the project?
We don't necessarily try to do an estimation of it, if it's going to change and by how much, because again, we don't have that expertise. Generally speaking, we do not see this kind of an increase that we've seen on this project. There have been a couple of instances over the almost 20 years that I've been here where we have seen some incidents like this, and it's been extremely close to the lake, and instances where we've had extremely leaky sanitary sewers before the construction project, and those got sealed as a part of the construction project. But generally speaking, we do not see this kind of a change, so that is why it's been a challenge to figure out where it's coming from.
Sure, that's helpful. I think just as we look at the future, I'd want to understand if we're going to establish some radius for when we do look at the potential for this problem. As you mentioned, it's typically areas close to the lake. We know what's happening on 7th Ave, but that way we can identify the problem before it happens. And I know I'm oversimplifying that because, again, I'm not an engineer. And then I guess maybe my last couple of questions are really, I know we finished the sidewalk, we finished the street after we knew the problem was taking place. Would there have been any advantage to not doing that?
None that's immediately coming to mind.
Okay.
Some of the other variables that we've talked about and we'll be talking about with the consultant are things that could take place outside of the pavement. So I'm not having anything quickly coming to mind as a reason that would have said not to get pavement on the street to move forward.
That's incredibly helpful. And then my last question, I promise, guys, is when we do have issues like this, and I don't know who this question is for, when we do have issues like this where there is going to be some very expensive research and then potentially work to be done to correct the issue, if it can be corrected, where do those funds come from?
It's going to come out of our capital budget.
It'll come from this project budget.
And I guess maybe, what if we exceed what has been budgeted? That's my question.
Then you would get a CIP amendment request along with a contract for, whatever services are required.
And we haven't reached that point yet?
No, we're fine with the budget.
Okay.
So that's why we did the grouting, and we've talked about other things that we might do to address those things, but we really want to talk to a hydrogeologist that says, if you do that, you may get this or that, and because we don't know those things, we don't want to do something and then hope it works. We're going to do something, we want to have a very high likelihood of success.
Especially as, some of those options could be, the grout curtain that we installed, that was a very small cost. Some of the other ones that we've, tossed about, it's not 10, 15, 20,000. We're talking, $2, $3, $4, $500,000, things that we may have to do. That's why it's important to get that more information before we try to take that big of a step and say, well, hopefully this or what, we'll try this and see. We want to get more information before we spend that kind of dollars.
Understood. Well, I appreciate your time. 7th Ave community, I see you all sitting here again. I know that this isn't how you want to spend your Tuesday nights, but I appreciate you being here. Hopefully you can see that we're asking the questions and we're looking for the answers, both on the council side and staff side. So, thanks.
Councilmember Larson, followed by Deputy Mayor.
I have almost the exact same question DJ asked, but I think maybe one step further. And James and Justin, I do appreciate the weekly updates. Obviously, I appreciate everybody in here from 7th Street coming here. Having had something like this happen similar to me, I completely understand Lee's frustration here. And the question Mr. Faust keeps asking is the one I keep coming back to. But to DJ's point, this didn't happen before September, whatever it was. It did happen after that. At what point is it cheaper just to dig a hole in his front yard and see what's happening? Rather than, I wrote it down, rather than digesting the background information and look for a hydrogeologist, is it cheaper at some point just to look and see what's happening than wait and see if we can find the right person to do it?
Unfortunately, the challenge might be as we dig that hole, it might not give us anything. It will tell us where water is in that particular location, but it won't tell us where it's coming from and how to stop it from getting there.
Sure.
That's the challenge that we're trying to get through.
That sounds like the same challenge as hoping we find a firm that might be able to find the information and put the pieces together to think about it in the right way to give us some information going forward, which, my question, and I'm not being pedantic here, which is the more direct route to figure out what's wrong? If we don't know, we don't know. We don't know no matter what. But how expensive is it to tear up X amount of sidewalk and street in front of Lee's house? Too expensive? If it is, I have no idea. I'm not trying to be snotty about it. I have no idea how much it costs. That seems simpler to me, and that seems simpler to Mr. Faust.
The cost would certainly depend on, where we're digging, if we're digging in the street or if we're digging in the yard. Certainly, getting televising in the storm sewer doesn't require digging. It requires blocking it off and pumping it down, and, that is another avenue that we've been talking about as we go through this as well. Some of the challenge is trying to isolate this part of the system from, everything all the way back to South Park, which still has impact and influence from the Fox River's water elevation. So those are some of the challenges we're trying to figure out how to mitigate as we try to continue investigating it.
I get it. And I could just really feel the frustration. I don't want to do it every other Tuesday. So if there comes a point, I think you'd find a lot of sympathy up here with finding a more direct route to do it rather than hoping we figure out what it is.
Understood.
One thing to that too is I think for my home, I feel the sympathy and feel the pain that they're going through, wanting to try to find a quick answer. The hard part about the scientific way of doing things is you can't do too many things because then you don't really know what's going to be the problem or what's going to be the solution. So step one was, we thought, isolate our system from the rest of the system, install that grout curtain. We've now done that. We've seen a change in some of the water elevations. Granted, we've had some rain, so it's, again, you have all these variables that you input. At what point does digging a hole somewhere, not digging a hole somewhere, is that going to give you anything or not give you anything, right? You got to figure out a process. Yes, digging a hole might be the next step, but trying to be able to do this methodically, get a process, try something, see what it does. Before you add something else to the equation, let's make sure the first thing you did worked or didn't work.
Deputy Mayor.
So I heard kind of a version of this asked to you guys from 3 people now, and I hit my button before they ended. But I just want to be blunt. What do you need from us that I don't have to see them anymore. I like them. They're fantastic. They've been very patient, they've been very kind, but I shouldn't have to, like Counselor Larson said, they shouldn't have to spend their Tuesday nights with us. So I can't offer you a blank check, because we just talked about how tight the budget is. But what is it that we can do? Do you need me to make calls? Do you need me to send emails?
No, I think right now, our biggest thing is expediting getting a consultant to help us. Then, you're going to see a contract, for that, depending on, whether it's under 75,000 or over 75,000 will determine whether we're reporting to you that we've already executed it or we're asking you to approve it, so we can get going. So, that will be the next step that we're coming to you and asking you, this is what we need from you, is once we have that sorted out and we know what that cost is, that we're either saying we've done this and we're working on it already, or we're saying we need you to approve this so we can get going on it.
Excellent. And I respect the scientific method as much as anybody else. I think you have heard that there's an appetite up here. I don't, you can't throw a shotgun at the wall and then be like, okay, this is the BB that did it. I get that. But I think you've heard the appetite that, we want to prioritize this.
Understood.
I would also state that I will not be hesitant to use the emergency powers that I have, that if it's $75,001, I'm gonna come and ask for forgiveness. I'm not going to let this rest.
And if we don't?
You can fire me, it's okay. No, we know what these folks are going through, and we could easily talk about things with flip answers. You don't deserve flip answers, but to give certainty, I love these guys, and they drive me crazy sometimes, but they don't want to give you an answer just to get you to walk away, and then something worse happens. We owe it to these guys to keep this going. That's why Justin's writing a weekly report. When I saw the 245-page report, that wasn't intended for us to read it, it was intended for an engineer to read it, but it's so much data that I know these guys are trying to be as forthcoming to a potential consultant so that the consultant says, I understand the issue, I have experience with the issue. And you keep using consultant. Well, let's use the better term, an expert. We need experts that understand this hydrogeology. Many years ago, I had some experiences with hydrogeologists, and it's mind-boggling the level of detail that these folks go through. So, we don't want to just get anybody and just give a flip answer and then we wash our hands of the whole thing. We want to find out what the cause of this is. We've heard instances where it's less in one area, a few houses or across the street. Those are things that scientists are going to try to pinpoint, why is it here and not there? Literally, we're poking a balloon, we expect it to pop out over here, and it's popping out over there. That's a very oversimplified, but that's how my mind works. That's what we owe these guys, and please understand that we're trying. But I don't want to give you an answer that just says, okay, we'll go home until Lee has another flooding incident. I owe you better than that, and I know the council knows we owe you better than that. Please bear with us. You can keep bugging us every week. It's okay. That's sort of your job in this case. Our job is to help get an answer, and we're going to do it when we can. I wish it could be fast, Mr. Esslinger. I really do. We know that we need to get answers for these folks, and we're going to keep trying.
Councilmember Nichols.
Yeah, just to that point, Mark, I was going to say, you don't have to break any rules. I'm sure you can get enough of us together for an emergency session to get it done. So that was going to make that offer, and I'm sure you can get us together.
I can declare an emergency if I need to. And so thank you. I appreciate that offer, and I will take you up on it. And even if it has to be on Christmas Eve, I'll call you on Christmas Eve if I have to.
My in-laws don't watch this, but I can say they'll be at my house, and so I would love to come on Christmas Eve.
If you make the eggnog, I'll show up, and that'll be 2 days after I'm technically retired, so.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you. Thank you to the residents that have come here, before today. I know this isn't going to be the last time we see you. And as I think you've heard from all of council, we want you to be here and telling us. We don't want to see you because we want to know that the project's been completed to satisfaction. But we know you're going to be here. But I also have heard some pretty good resolve from this council. And if I've seen anything in the last, what's it, November? So last, 7 months from this council, when they've got their eye on something, they're not gonna let go of it. And I don't suspect this council's gonna let go of the topic, so, it'll be, on the forefront, until it's resolved, so. Moving on to next, we have discussion direction. This is a 2024 election recap, the process and procedures. I don't know who put this on or where it's coming from.
I put it on so I could give council an opportunity to ask questions, give some concerns. There clearly were some challenges with our election and how we administered it. There are a lot of different factors to it. Just know that even though the election may be over to the voting public, the election process is hardly over for Ms. Bartlett and her staff. Just today, they spent a good part of the day over at the county clerk's office doing what's mandated by law, which is doing the canvassing. So, she's still cleaning up from last week, but we recognize that the satisfaction level was not good, and there's a bunch of factors to that. Turnout was clearly one of those things, but there were other things, and I'm going to defer to Diane to kind of talk about those things and what we plan to do. I could sit here and tell you, well, there's this city over here that was 6 hours waiting line and this and that. You don't care about that. You care about what happens right here in Oshkosh, and I think Diane and her staff recognize that. This isn't to gain sympathy, because Diane isn't going to say that. Diane worked for 30 hours straight. 3-0, and so did her deputy clerk. And the shortest that her full-time staff worked, one of them only worked 23 straight hours. That's the level of commitment that they had to address this issue. They know the results weren't the greatest, but at the end of the day, they did get it done because they knew they had to. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Diane. No apologies. Mr. Nichols and I were talking before the meeting, and I said, guilty as charged. And I said, well, maybe no contest. We're not saying we're not guilty of some things. We know we could have done better. There are a lot of things, and I'll have Diane talk about it to the degree she can at this point.
Yeah. I appreciate everything. It was a great opportunity, and I know we're not perfect. And I know that we can improve, and we've already started talking about improvements of what we could do. The day after, I put a request out to the person that we bought our Badger books from. How much will it cost to get 10 more? So, we're looking at getting some more machines. We're looking at improving our process. If you guys are looking for a way to help, when you said that to James, I was like, I'm next. Put out on your social media to have people register before Election Day. We processed approximately 4,000 Election Day registrations.
Wow.
So,
Well, not every 9 voters registered that day.
so that was a holdup at some locations. So if you're going to do anything, do that. If your constituents are wondering how they can help, tell them to sign up as a poll worker through their party, because by law, I have to use those lists first. So if you have people that are interested in wanting to work, tell them to sign up at their party, I'll get the list, and we'll get them trained. I appreciate you guys reaching out and saying, what can I do to help? But I can't just have anybody off the street come on in and do something. You have to do an oath, you have to do training, you have to do certain things by law. So, like I said, it was a learning experience. I appreciate all the comments, all the suggestions, ideas. I told the staff, if you're sitting down for dinner and something pops in your head, write it down. Just write it down, and we'll definitely reevaluate and improve our process.
And if we need to, we'll look to the outside assistance for that as well. We did a process improvement about 12 years ago after the 2012 election, and we instituted some things, and that worked out great. With new technology, that 12 years old process doesn't even apply anymore. So we got to take a look at what's going on today. And I know there's a lot of people with a lot of suggestions about, well, you should do it here or there. I'm not using this to make my point, but facilities are an issue, and that's a real challenge. 19 East Irving worked great for staff, lousy for the public. Public says we should use the convention center. It's great for the public, but literally they would have to pack up every night and bring it back to City Hall for election security. There's not a secure place over at the convention center. As great as the location it would be for the public, we did it one year and we literally packed up and moved back to City Hall every single night and then packed and removed it back to there. I mean, you can leave, pencils and that there, but the equipment and the ballots, you got to take with you, and it's a big security issue. So that's just a small smattering of what we can do. We can do better, we will do better, and I know Diane and her staff are committed to doing that.
Yeah, thank you.
I will, I'm going to take a little privilege before the Deputy Mayor and Mr. Flom go. Normally I go last, but City Manager mentioned 1 in 9 registered that day, so I can do some math here. 36,000 roughly voted from the City of Oshkosh?
Approximately.
Approximately?
Yes.
That's an incredible number.
It's a good number.
That's a record probably?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's a big number. And I know 4 years ago myself, I stood in line, hour and a half plus, almost 2, waiting to make sure I got to do my, my great part of being a U.S. citizen of casting my ballot. This is not to say that people should just be patient and wait in line. That is part of the process when there's big elections. It'd be nice if some more people showed up in April. Have a little more input on those elections too. That's a big number to process. And then what I appreciate right now is I'm not hearing excuses. That's the nice thing. And I appreciate that a lot. I'm in an operational field where it's okay to fail, but just fail fast and let's reassess and do some continuous improvement process here. And it sounds like that's what we're going to do internally here. It's not a process that council gets to be involved in, but to your point, when it's time to ask us for resources, I don't suspect that would be too much of a difficult ask in terms of some of the things you may need to be effective, not only in 4 years for the next presidential, but 2 years for the next governor race here in the state of Wisconsin. So I appreciate all the effort. I know it was a tough night, a long night. Some of it was expected. Some things weren't. Can't plan for everything. But appreciate the professionalism within the clerk's department and here at City Hall to make sure that got done and got done well. I know I didn't enjoy either seeing results so late, but I'd rather have them accurate than inaccurate. So I'll take that. Councilmember Flom goes first, and then Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I have a number of questions for the clerk, but first, I know there's at least one individual here who came later and hasn't been able to register to speak. Is it okay if that person comes up and has some comments by chance?
It's up to council. We moved past that, but if council's...
It's on the specific item.
If it's on this item?
Yes.
Yeah, they can.
Yes.
If you could give your name and address, please. Keep it to 5 minutes, and it stays on topic of the election recap process and procedures.
Definitely. I am Tim Patterson. I'm a resident of Oshkosh since '91 and a homeowner since '94. And I am one of the people that was running as a candidate for the 54th Assembly. Folks, I come from a strong military background, and we have a certain standard that we have to uphold to. And I know that we can't necessarily uphold that same standard in the civilian world. But there's a part of me that feels as though that we need to be upholding that standard within our city elected and appointed officials. And to quote from an item called the Uniform Code of Military Justice, it's not simply enough to prove impropriety, but simply the appearance of impropriety is wrong, okay? And we are aware of the fact that across the nation, there was a lot of concern with regard to election integrity, okay? And I'm not throwing any accusations out there, but what concerns me is we were the last in the state to produce results. We should have been aware of the fact that
this is going to be one of the largest elections that we've ever had. And it seems as though that there was a very high level of unpreparedness for it. I'm not sure why that happened. I respect the fact that you were looking at doing an AAR, but I haven't heard yet in this AAR process any of the issues that were brought to my attention on election night. I've heard rumors about a polling location running out of ballots. I've heard a rumor about people were told, hey, they're out of ballots, don't bother voting anymore. I heard a rumor about voting still taking place at 11:30 at night. Frustrating. Oshkosh was mentioned twice on national news for being inefficient. Now, that's an embarrassment to the community, okay? And for me personally, first time running for office, this was embarrassing and actually pretty insulting. Just simply between 8 o'clock and 10 o'clock in the morning, because results weren't officially published yet, I was congratulated as having won the election. Through texts, phone calls, and Facebook posts. It was pretty humiliating to have to sit back and to refer back to every one of these people that reached out to me and say, no, actually I lost. It just took so long to compile the results. They weren't even published, and to go through that was embarrassing and insulting. Not just to me, but to my wife, to my daughter, to the people that helped run my campaign, and to the people of this city who supported my campaign. Really, in truth, it's a slap in the face to every one of us. And so this is really frustrating, and I'm sorry, I know I'm piling on here. I do want to convey that I do have a little bit more respect than I'm conveying at the moment. I do apologize. But probably the thing that is the most frustrating to me, going back to the election integrity thing, is while I'm out campaigning, I'm talking to young people, 20 to 30-year-olds, trying to encourage them, for them themselves to run for office, okay? You know, you got to stand up for something that you believe in. You should go run for office. And the way we handled it here basically shut all that convincing completely down, all right? And I feel embarrassed by trying to stand up and say, no, you need to stand up for what you believe in. Running for office is something that you should do in the future. But we failed here, okay? In terms of how all the question marks, and the same thing with high school kids that I talked to as well. They're all pretty disappointed with how this was handled. As nothing follows, thank you.
Councilmember Flom did have the floor previous.
Yeah, I have a couple of just kind of follow-up points. Diane, thank you for everything that your team has done. It seems, in terms of the after-action report, that there's been, you know, some improvements that can be made. And in terms of 19 East Irving, I waited in line for over an hour, and that's just the reality of high turnout elections. You are going to sit in line. That happens. But just knowing that us up here, we hear the frustrations that people have, and that we need to be, at the end of the day, better prepared for high turnout elections. And we want high turnout elections. We want as much of them as possible. And so I just want to thank you and your team. I know that there's probably some more discussions in terms of needs assessments. I'm very happy to hear that you'll get more Badger books and expand capacity. And if there's anything that you need from us, by all means, please let us know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Deputy Mayor, followed by Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. So this one's been sitting for a while, and it's not an election day thing, but it was an early voting thing. And that was that we had huge turnout for that as well. And to be blunt, we were not ready for that at 19 East Irving in terms of being able to handle that many people efficiently. The part that really, though, got me, and I understand why we enforced the parking, but handing out parking tickets for people waiting in line to vote is something that doesn't sit well with me. And so I've been waiting until this night because I knew it was going to be on the thing, but I want to know what's possible as a body here to, I would move to reverse those tickets or remediate them or however we can do that, because I don't think that we had enough parking for the population that was voting, and I don't think getting a parking ticket while you're voting is acceptable. So that's, I guess, in the form of a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, we've talked.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So the parking tickets are ordinance violations. As a council, you could direct us to, basically waive retroactively. The word was not coming right away, sorry. Waive kind of retroactively those parking tickets. I would want to be real clear on the parameters of, because you're not waiving, every parking ticket those days or whatever. If there's an area, whatever it is, we would just have to define that.
I think the chief would welcome the council taking that action. I don't think we want to put ourselves into a situation where we're having the police revoke tickets on their own. And I think the chief can probably give you those parameters, because I think the chief had a pretty good idea. Chief voted over there too, and was very familiar with the situation. And I don't need to put you on the spot, Dean. I think, we've kind of talked enough. I think he can give you some parameters, and we can bring it back at a future meeting.
That would be, I think that'd be an appropriate
Is
thing.
that,
I think that would be.
yeah, you need to tell us that.
I think that would be appropriate.
Is that the nodding the heads? The nodding.
But there's some.
There's a timing issue, right?
There's some timing things, because people are going to pay their bills and all that stuff, because most people are conscientious and responsible. Logistically, I don't know how easy that is, but I don't need the answer tonight.
That I would defer to Julie.
I think a question was posed. I think it's a valid question to ask, and if staff could put that information together for us to consider, that would be something we would welcome. But
Mr. Bueller didn't surprise me with this topic tonight, so, we
try not
talked
to.
internally. No, I don't know, Chief, if you really have anything more to say about that. You walked halfway up, so.
I want to be clear that our officers weren't there targeting people to write parking tickets. The parking tickets that were issued were citizen complaints that they couldn't get down the driveway, couldn't get down the roadway. Delivery people couldn't access where they were doing their business, and the officers responded appropriately. We were not doing anything to patrol for people illicitly parking. I want to be clear on that. Our staff understands the situation. They understand what's going on, and we're put in a difficult place at times where we have to respond to citizens' complaints, and we have very limited tools available to us, but our officers did their job. And certainly it's your purview to do what you feel like you need to. I was actually there. I parked right around the corner and walked up. I parked legally so I could vote, and that option was available. There's plenty of parking right along Irving. So I felt I have to say that for my officers, because they did their job. Thank you.
And now I'm going to do mine.
Exactly, and thank you.
Councilmember Nichols.
Thank you. I agree with Councilmember Buelow on the parking piece. I know I talked to Chief Smith that day, that where we were getting those reports. We have two chiefs, and I'm going to get them mixed up sometimes.
Just call him Chief S.
Chief. I'll just say Chief. Anyway, I appreciate you bringing that up, Carl, and I know that we'll talk about it more. Because of a timing reason, I know we're all going to be together next week. So there is an opportunity for an earlier meeting if we need to figure that out just from timing purposes. But you tell us what the...
Julie was chirping in my ear about some logistics in terms of penalties and things like that. We'll talk internally.
Great.
If there's an urgency to it, we'll do it. But, we want to, I think the fact that you're having this discussion publicly for any of those folks who may be listening in, the council's direction tonight was pretty clear. If it was on the agenda, I have a pretty good idea how it would turn out. So we'll work out.
The only other thing I'll mention that's in that same vein, though, is I know that there was, and I talked to the chief on election day as well. I don't believe parking tickets were issued at polling locations, but to the extent that we find that they may have been inadvertently, again, and I appreciate you, Chief, the police officers are just doing their job, community service officers are just doing their job, but to the extent that they have been issued on election day at polling locations, I think it'd be worth revisiting those parking tickets as well. But I think this really goes to the broader point, and I appreciate Mr. Patterson coming to speak. All six of us have run for office. We know that it is a very humbling and intimidating thing to do, regardless of outcome. So I appreciate you coming to speak. I think that us talking about parking and early voting and election day voting and Badger books really just tells me this is a whole of government conversation. And so Mr. Roloff and I spoke, I think last week, about the potential for a report here, just so that, to Mr. Patterson's point, we are being completely transparent when it comes to election integrity issues. I haven't heard anyone say that we're doubting the outcome of the Oshkosh election process. And that is a huge success for our clerk. That's a huge success for our city. Better late than never. Better never late. That's the whole saying. But I appreciate that no one is doubting our election integrity, and I would support and welcome, and maybe more people on council would, but us to identify what went well, what went poorly, and what we're going to do to address those things that went poorly. I think making that a public document would be incredibly helpful. And again, we're not pointing fingers. We're getting better. So that's where I'm going there. Thanks.
Thank you.
Councilmember Flom.
Just kind of one final point on this. One thing I would also like to see is some potential contingencies. If we know this is going to be a high turnout election, could we maybe pull in extra staff? I know city staff work very, very hard, but I know that in Milwaukee, they were pulling in people from other departments to help count absentee ballots at central count. So that could be another potential suggestion. But just looking at the amount of equipment that we have and the amount of people that we have, I think is really necessary. You know, can we potentially do reserve poll workers? Can we offer advanced and expedited trainings? Can we do this kind of stuff so that we can pull more people off the bench when we need it? The last thing I want to see is, you know, people saying there are long lines, they're out of ballots. I don't want a chilling effect on voting. So I think it's pretty clear that council wants to view this as a learning experience and what we can do better going forward. And thank you very much for your effort, and we'll get better from here.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
If there's no other discussion or direction to city manager, we can move on to future agenda items, meetings, and workshops. We do have at the next council meeting, the next regularly scheduled council meeting, that's Tuesday, the 26th of November. After the council meeting, we're going to have a closed session. This is a follow-up from one of our budget workshops to discuss city hall renovations and/or potential relocation of city hall and any impacts that may have. So put that on your calendars, council members. As well as I think Councilmember Esslinger has something he'd like to request as well. Councilmember Esslinger.
Thank you, Mayor. Council, I stopped at the Oshkosh Area Humane Society last week. There was some discussion on social media regarding them, and so I wanted to kind of update myself as to some of their policies, why they do what they do and don't do what they don't do. And so it was kind of an eye-opening experience to me that they told me that some people call there and they still think they're on Dempsey Trail, down where the sanitation plant is, and they've been gone. So I told them, I said, I think you have a really bad public relations situation here, and I think maybe people don't understand exactly what's going on. And she said, yeah, and we had some improvements done. So they would really, really appreciate it if they can come to, and we do fund them to a certain extent. They'd like to come and just give a presentation of who they are and what they, I mean, this sounds really simple, but trust me, it's not that simple. And I think the public has some misconceptions of why they do what they do. And so I think I think it would be a good idea for them to come forward and you know, give them some time to discuss what they do. So I don't know, it's not a workshop, it's, I guess, a presentation?
Yeah, no, I got you on that one. I think maybe I think we chatted previous to the meeting, maybe if city manager of your office, maybe your admin assistant could reach out to the Humane Society in terms of a brief presentation. We try to use the word brief with some of our guests who give presentations at the front end of a meeting. But Councilmember Esslinger is on a point here because in my time, I haven't heard from them in terms of coming to us and telling what they're providing to the community.
Well, yeah, I did talk to her, and she's going to put something together, and then she was going to call me back and say, I've got it to get. So then I would talk to Mr. Roloff on what,
in terms of
what would be available. I don't, you know, so.
Just let me know.
I'll let you know.
That sounds good.
Okay, thank you very much.
Deputy Mayor.
Thank you. I was lucky to have a preview of the attendees tonight coming from the lovely Esther groups and other about the issues, especially the city manager and I have talked about the Racine Rents program a little bit. I would like to get an agenda item so we can actually dig into what we currently have in terms of an Oshkosh rental program outside of See-Click Fix, what it would take, because the last time we talked about rental inspections was before I was on city council. So obviously things have changed since then. What city staff could be working on this, what it would take from us to make something happen. Because the way I foresee a tenant landlord resource center, and I really like it phrased that way, it's not just a tenant resource center. It really is a center for the cooperation and the community between them. Would likely be a public-private nonprofit partnership, but I want to know what can happen from our end to make that happen. Obviously, I need some more heads to nod, and okay, so, but that would be something I'd like to see as a future agenda item.
Okay. Any more agenda items, meetings, or workshops to discuss? I don't think there are, other than moving right into council member announcements and statements. A reminder for the public, council should be well aware, but so next Monday, this coming Monday, the 18th, from 6 to 8 p.m. at the Oshkosh Convention Center, we're going to welcome, we should be welcoming our finalists for the city manager posting that's currently vacant, or that's currently there. That's a time and a place for the residents of Oshkosh to come and interact with those folks, learn a little bit about them in a controlled setting there. That we have a nice space at the convention center to welcome you all, and then to provide feedback to the city council, so that when we meet the next day to go through an intensive interview process with those applicants, that can help form the opinions of those who attended and those of the public, to make sure that we're best representing what those interests are. So I want to remind folks, Monday, 6 to 8, Convention Center, come out to the meet and greet. We'd love to have you and love to have your input on the process. So with that, I have no other announcements myself. Any other council member announcements or statements that you'd like to make? I see none. We'll move it on to city manager announcements and statements. Mark?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I can tell you that citizen engagement session, there are people to this day that I met at that session that still talk to me. It is outstanding. So if the public can attend, it's a great process, and I certainly encourage you to do it. Highly recommend. With that said, got a memo in the packet regarding abandoning 28 of the monitoring wells for the Mill on Main project. Now that it's underway, our work's completed, so we have to go through the abandonment process, about $2,000 per each monitoring well, so $56,000. Have that, and have the outstanding issues. I did not add, I'm going to be full disclosure, I didn't put it in there, but because it was on the agenda, the 7th Avenue, I will make sure it gets added on there, because I want that to keep going regardless of how many people show up until we have some closure on that issue. That's all I have, unless the council has any questions.
I see none. Deputy Mayor, do you have a motion for us?
I do. Pursuant to Section 19.85, 1.c of the Wisconsin State Statutes, I move into closed session to consider employment and compensation of city manager, a public employee, over which the governmental body has jurisdiction and exercises responsibility, specifically review of the candidates for city manager recruitment.
Second.
Any discussion on the motion? See none, if you'll take the roll on motion to go into closed session.
Buelow?
Aye.
Nichols?
Aye.
Larson?
Aye.
Esslinger?
Aye.
Plum?
Aye.
Mughawar?
Aye.
Carried 6.
I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.